Eyes wide open. If you think Dogman is just a legend, keep watching.
Tender County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
I'm driving on 210. I just crossed the Black River, and I thought I saw a guy standing on the side of the road bleeding.
Okay, where are you at, sir?
I'm on 210. I just crossed the Black River. I'm heading towards 53 East. I just passed Patriots Watch.
Okay, so you're over near Morse Creek?
Yes.
Okay. And did you saw a man standing on the side of the road?
What the?
What was that, sir?
That's not human! That's not human!
He says the thing literally is scratching on the top of the truck and peers in through that back window at him.
Jeez.
Hello, right? Right. He's by himself.
Gosh, what do you do?
There's no street lights on this road. It's curvy. It's dark out there, man. The trees are so close. So he slams on brakes really, really hard. You can hear the thing tumbling over the top of the vehicle, right? He said it tumbles over, and you can, if you listen really close, because the 911 operator's stepping on this sound, but if you listen, you can hear him just floor the truck trying to get around this thing.
Sir, are you okay, sir?
There's something in the bed of my truck!
Okay, what's in the road?
No, it's not in the road. It's in my truck. In the bed.
There's something in the bed of your truck?
Yes, ma'am. I just turned on my bed lights for my truck, and there's something in my bed.
Okay, sir, when you say something, what do you mean?
I just knocked it off of the bed of my truck and went over my roof.
Okay, what was it?
And he says as he's coming around it, he sees it stand up and run off into the woods.
If you've ever wondered what really growls in the wilderness after sunset, you're in the right place. Don't forget to subscribe, and let's take a look.
From the misty mountains of Appalachia to dimly lit back streets of suburbia, a living nightmare is lurking. A frightful bipedal werewolfian beast, reported for centuries under different names. Today, it is called the Dogman. And some accounts are more horrifying than others. Particular attributes to these encounters suggest a sinister intelligence and almost demonic intent to elicit maximum terror. Who are these dark visitors? And what is their purpose? Join us as we follow the unsettling pattern to track down the darker side of Dogman.
They're not men. They're not dogs. They're the ultimate predator. There's something in between. Fast, fierce, and deadly. For years, there have been reports of sightings and encounters in our national parks and national forests. What are they? They've got many names. Cynocephaly, Wolfman, Werewolf, and most recently, Dogman. But where do they come from? What do they want? And more importantly, are they hunting us in our homes?
I just get this cold feeling. And I get goosebumps all on the left side of my body. And I'm looking, I look to where the cold feeling's coming from. And I just see this massive black dog. Biggest dog I've ever seen in my life. And my grandmother my mother's mother, she used to have these, they were German Shepherd Great Dane mixes. And she had them around the house. These things were massive. This thing was bigger than that. And it was just, you could see the muscle underneath the fur. It was black, shaggy fur. What hit me wasn't the smell. When I started noticing things, I'm looking at it through its profile. It has a massive chest, not dog-like, because the dogs would go down, would cave in, would do that little thing. But no, it was like this, like it had pectorals, and its arms were wrong. you could see the muscle in them. And then its waist tapered very thinly. And then it had what I could only, have you ever seen like the back legs of a very muscular, like a cane corso or something?
Mm-hmm.
And just imagine something like 3 or 4 times muscular than that. And at the end, what I saw.
So it had dog legs.
It had dog legs. It had like very dog-like legs. And it was just, its paws, its feet, the end of those legs were paws, but they were like massive. There was fur coming out of like it was very strange. And I see kind of like a tail, and as I'm like done doing like that little, this is all within like maybe 2-3 seconds, and this thing kind of just looks at me, and I can feel the hate coming off of this thing, almost as if now that I think about it, it's like I just summoned this thing, or I just brought this thing into this plane, and this thing hates me for it. I know what a wolf sounds like. This thing was not that. It was like a deep rumbling. Like I felt it in my bones. Now I know what infrasound is. It felt like what people describe infrasound. That's what it felt like. I like my muscles, nothing wanted to budge, and then I just felt it almost felt like something pushed me. I felt a hand on my back, and I just sprinted as fast as I could. Mind you, I'm over here off the trail. I'm running towards the trail now as fast as I can. I'm hopping logs. This thing is keeping track with me, and I can tell this thing can probably catch up to me. It can kill me. This thing is playing with me. And over by the trail, I see 2 large, dark figures, way bigger than what a person would be. Massive shoulders, like conical heads. And I'm over here, I just look at these things and I'm afraid as well. Like I well up with fear. Like I'm over here like, all right, what did I do? And I'm thinking, this thing is a hunting dog. Those are the masters. I want to get to a trail because I'm thinking, all right, maybe if I see other people, if we see other people, this thing will like go away. What I grew up learning as a kid was these things, they have no agency and they have no power over groups of people. They'll have agency and power over you. But the second you're with someone else, maybe that agency goes away. Or at least that's what I thought. As I'm running, I'm over here deep into the woods. I'm actually closer to the edge of the woods. The edge of the woods going into people's backyards. And this thing is coming right with me. So I turn around and I hop this log. Not log, but tree that had fallen over. I still remember it. The tree that had fallen over. I'm over here. I jump over it. And I finally see a line of fences in the distance. I'm not a high jumper. At this point in my life, I'd rather just run through a fence than try and jump over it. But back then, I was a lot more dexterous. I hopped that thing, good like 6 feet. I fall on the other side, and I'm over here on my back. I'm looking up. I'm waiting for this thing to just smash through the fence or hop on over. Nothing. I run inside to that house, not knowing whose house it is or whatever. I see this lady, and I'm over here like, Miss, please, can you call the police? I need you to call the police. Call animal control or something. I'm not going to tell them, hey, there's a demon creature dog coming after me or a werewolf. I'm definitely not going to tell them about weird, tall, dark-shaped looking things over there. I'm over here like, okay, there's a wild dog or maybe a wolf that got out of the conservation center.
The great deceit of our lifetimes is that the institutions that we think are preserving knowledge are actually hiding information. That's a big difference. And the two that probably are the most complicit in hiding truth from people are the Vatican and the Smithsonian Institute.
I have this book called The UFO Silencers. It talks about the MIB by Timothy Beckley. big time UFO researcher. He's no longer here with us anymore. But that second page of that book, it talks about a 1967 case out in Glacier National Park in Montana, and how the MIB showed up after a supposedly bear attack that attacked two hikers. So it just amazed me. So like, why would these so-called agencies show up on these supposedly labeled bear attacks? You know what I'm saying? It's just more to it. And I'm pretty sure you know about the Knott County in Kentucky attack.
Oh yeah,
that
we
happened
investigated those. Yeah,
with Corey Kotze. You want to give a little insight about that?
yeah. That was a odd situation because we got a picture of because he wasn't the only one who was attacked. There was a lot of animals that were attacked there also, and we have a picture of like the dead horse. And there's a huge canine print right there by the head of the horse, that was killed. His situation, they covered that up big time because the police were saying, well, that he and his family was part of a dogfighting ring that was taking place. And it was one of the dogs, that they used to fight with, got out when he was trying to feed it and killed him. But, this thing dragged him like 400 feet up a hill.
Right.
And
that don't make sense. A dog doing that?
No, because here's the thing. If a dog's going to attack you, he's going to attack you there. Okay. He's going to kill you there. And you're not going to run 400 feet up a hill and not get caught by that dog till you're all the way to the top. Okay. It doesn't make sense. So that was their story. That's obviously a cover up because, a horse is a very strong animal, and they'll fight and they'll kill you. I've seen a video of a donkey killing a mountain lion, just stomping the crap out of it and killing it. But a horse, for something to kill this horse and it had to be strong to take it down because, you're looking 400 or 500 pounds, horse, and he's going to fight, and he lost his fight. But like I said, there's this huge canine print that was right there by the head. And we got a picture of it, and it wasn't, any domestic dogs that were in the area, cause we didn't see any. And, the deputy that was there, accidentally stepped on it, the print. So, it was a cover up.
I believe definitely. I know this is jumping into a little bit more conspiracy.
No, that's fine.
I'm pretty sure you research about these DUMBs, deep underground military bases, and how there's been whistleblowers that came out and testified of different lower levels of the base, how the base is at least 4 miles deep. One particular man that really caught my interest out of all the whistleblowers that came out was Thomas Edwin Costello, a former security officer that worked out there, who got out in 1979. And he talked about these different bases levels. And he talked about one in particular called level 6, Nightmare Hall. And he talked about all these things that he's seen in there from different genetic hybrids of what he believed that the government have gene spliced and created. And he took some papers out of Dose, and later on he ends up going missing. So do you think there could be a potential link with Dogman and some of these deep underground military base facilities? Because I looked at an incomplete 1978 underground facility map scattered all across America, and it showed that a lot of these entrances to these deep underground military bases are connected to national park, including Yosemite National Park. So do you think there's a possible connection to these dogmen and deep underground military bases? Even though I know there's no evidence for this apparently, but I mean, all we have is people who've have insight of these things. What is your take on that?
Well, to get back to that security guard, he also mentioned that he saw a guy in a cage.
Yeah.
Asking for help, and he gave him his name, and he went to look him up and found out he was missing. So they're using humans for experiments and things there. But, I can see the government, like I said, capturing a dogman, capturing a Bigfoot, and trying to weaponize it. Okay. Perfect example. Okay. Everybody's seen the movie The Exorcist. Well, the original Exorcist was a boy, not a girl. And right now, the boy's bed, the whole bedroom, his dressers, everything is in a storage facility at Andrews Air Force Base, or Scott Air Force Base. I'm sorry. And so why does the U.S. Air Force have possession of the Exorcist, bed and all this stuff, other than try to weaponize it? Okay. That's what they're trying to do with it. They're going to take that dark energy and weaponize it. And I can see them taking Dogman and Bigfoot and weaponizing that into a weapon that they can use, against our enemies or against certain people they want gone. And
Absolutely.
that would be the perfect weapon to do it. But will innocent people get killed in the process? Probably so.
I agree. Let's talk about that guy you said you had that talk with who talked about these dog soldiers who claimed he was part of this military operations. I would love to hear about that.
Yeah, I spoke at a conference in Louisville, and we went to the restaurant after the conference, and I went up to the bar to get something to drink, and there was a guy there. He had tattoos. He, had a military haircut, and he looked military. And he was asking, what was going on in the hotel, and stuff. And I told him there was a conference, a paranormal conference, and he was talking about joking about ghost hunting and stuff like that. And I was like, no, I do research on Dogman and Bigfoot. And he goes, Dogman. And I said, yeah, and I kind of explained to him what Dogman was. And we were just sitting there talking, shooting a breeze, talking about our military history and things like that. And, he just sat there and said, look, I'm going to tell you something. You can, believe me or not. I'm, at a military base, and, I'm just up here, and, my job is I go and recover down UFOs, for the government. And, we have a species that we were in contact with, which was a canine species. They look like wolves, but they're like human, stature and stuff, and they walk like humans, but their features are like a wolf, and they're all the same looking. And he said that they were so dangerous they had to keep them in the facility in South America, and they got out and they were creating havoc and stuff like that. And he was part of the team that had to go down and to eliminate them. Okay. So he was talking about their armor and stuff that they had, and they had special weapons they had to use. But one thing he also talked about was they had a sword that was what he described as like a pharaoh's sword. Like you had seen in the movie, The Scorpion King. It's kind of, odd looking sword, kind of comes out a little bit with like a crescent moon type, blade on it. And he talked about how they had this sword, but they were able to eliminate them. And Linda Godfrey got the same story like a year after I did. And I was talking to Linda at a different conference, and we were talking about it. And she goes, yeah, some guy came to me, about the story that I met. And it was a totally different guy, because I said, this is what the guy looked like that told me. She goes, well, this is what the guy looked like. So they were like totally different people.
I think that these things do exist. They come into existence possibly through what you had just said, like ritual. Then I believe that these things might be more interdimensional as well.
Mm-hmm.
Look the same, but maybe come from different origins.
Mm-hmm.
But I also believe that there is an element where there are elites who understand what is going on and what is out there, and there's replication. With all that, when it comes to this specific topic, but in general, there's got to be like these curveballs that happen. But what if something is maybe coming from another realm, or even created by an organization? And I'm asking this very open-ended because I don't have an answer to it.
Yeah.
But it leaves you scratching your head, because you're wondering, well, how do you handle something that was created and it looks like this? Maybe it was grown in a lab, but it's not a demon.
Yeah.
It's not an entity. It's not a spirit possessing a man. How do we even handle that?
Yeah.
That just kind of makes me left holding a bag, scratching my head again.
So this deep-rooted government official that we have to keep anonymous, his position, and I think it was in Alaska, but I can't give you guys an exact area, but he made it his mission in general for the military was to hunt and locate locations where these dogmen are seen. He hunts these dogman creatures and reports locations to be prepared for future government access. Hey, there's a threat here. We can't come here until we get rid of this. Or, I got rid of the threat. It's neutralized. We can do it. They ran into a creature who was begging to not be killed when they caught up to it. So when they ran into this creature, they thought this was the biggest threat. But this creature told them, hey, come with me. I want to show you something. And reluctantly, they both went, which is, to me, is crazy. Because if you see a creature like this, I don't know if I'd follow it.
What's interesting about this is it's basically affirming that it can be killed by us.
Yeah.
It's worried.
It was scared.
It's worried that our military could catch up, kill it, do the things that caught up to it, obviously. Our weaponry. So who knows if our weaponry can actually take them out. If these things are Nephilim, whatever, right? That's just a totally different subject.
Yeah.
But it was scared of us. It was scared of our military.
Yeah. They went deep into this open cavern and found clothing. They were looking at this in awe, looking at this creature, and it said, this is a kill site. And this is what you should be hunting. Who did speak English, by the way. And it alludes to this Christopher thing. Like, he was able to speak English. He had the dogman head.
Yeah, like the jaw is literally moving as it's talking. Right?
It's like, hey, this is a kill site, but it looks like a wolf. Like, that's just crazy to me.
Yeah.
But this is a real story. So I'm like, I have to give it some credence, because he wouldn't give that up if he didn't mean it.
Pieces from inside the earth. I've seen in deep underground military bases, dogmen, like you would kind of describe them, some more humanized. And I think a lot of those were experimentation and genetic splicing. I think a lot of that was gene editing stuff that I've seen. But I do believe that some of these things are holdovers from the old days. They're the last of their kinds, and they've been breeding them, right? And I believe that that's the stuff that's prophesied that's going to come back out and cause the hearts of men to stop for fear of looking after these things that are coming up on the earth. That's why everywhere I went throughout my youth, I could go to these tunnels and these caves and call out, and I could hear them and they would call back, and it's like, it's a seductive power that draws you back into it.
You could call out to them? Like, was it like a language or a sound or what?
Oh yeah, man. You can learn to call to them. You can go out here in these hills out here and do it. You can still do it tonight on these full moons and stuff. You can start calling out, and you'll think you'll hear coyotes at first. And then all of a sudden it's a totally different, it's a different sound that starts to resonate. And then it's a different one that calls off from over here, right? You got to understand, some of these guys that you think are just neighbors and stuff, or just people, this is what they keep in their barn. This stuff they keep. Yeah, absolutely.
When it comes to the colliding of these atoms, and you've achieved just about everything you could possibly achieve in finding the things, you spent billions and billions and billions of dollars to do this. Why do you need another one? Why do you need a bigger one? Why do you need to go right back on top of Switzerland? And I've got the picture that I'll send it to you that they've released, that CERN's corporation released. This was not made up by anybody else. of the actual footprint of the new CERN that's going to be created. It almost touches Davos. It circles the entire nation of Switzerland. And it's going to take, they say, 20 years, 15, 20 years to build. I mean, my goodness, think of the money that's going to take, the manpower that's going to take. For what? To collide more atoms? To get more particles? Come on. Look, use your simple mind and ask a simple question. When you add up all the CERNs around the world and all the ones that are planned, you're talking trillions. You're talking trillions of dollars that are being spent underground for something that 99.999% of human beings will never be able to see. It's underneath them. Why? What are you really doing? And that's why I believe that it's not really about scientific experiments. It is about portals. It is about veils. It is about opening things up. In predictive programming, if you follow that theory, one of the things that many in the elite world say as a part of their rule is they begin to have to tell you what they're going to do before they do it, so to desensitize yourself. And you think about, there's an entire generation that's open to portals. All they have to do is watch Stranger Things. When you watch Stranger Things, come on, that place where they tapped into that portal, it's like a miniature version of CERN. I mean, it's CERN. The veil opens up and it changes everything. And then there's an upside down world, which is another dimension. I mean, but now to us, when people talk like we're talking, people just sort of laugh it off and say, yeah, you've been watching too much TV. You're watching Stranger Things. And now you're just making up this whole narrative because you saw Stranger Things. No, it's the opposite. Stranger Things has come out because of the real thing, to try to prepare the world for the fact that there are portals opening up all over this world. Why?
Are we seeing, with this attack in Oklahoma, are we seeing the sort of the avant-garde of the enemy's forces? We just state that through occult means, a person can take on the persona of a dogman, of a werewolf, or there might be some sort of a breeding program where these dogmen are, in fact, modern-day Nephilim. We know this from the Book of Enoch, and this is why the Book of Enoch is so important. It states that the angels, the fallen angels, sinned against the animal kingdom. In other words, they were creating chimeras. So centaurs, minotaurs, fawns. So that what we see in Greek mythos might not be Greek mythos.
Men can crouch down, and that gives me the chills a lot. That like I told you guys before the podcast started, people always say, have you seen one? And I told you guys, hope nobody, gets upset about this or anything, but I did see one, and I shot an arrow at it, and it was if I didn't shoot an arrow at it, it would have probably killed me.
First one night, I had rented a cabin out by the Illinois River in Tahlequah, outside of Tahlequah, Main Street of Tahlequah, whatever, proper Tahlequah. And we were driving, and if you guys know recently where that rock, like, I think it might have been something has to do with the rocks or whatever. I could be wrong. That might be a different place. But there's a turn that you make, and then you go to the right, and there's like a barn house and a White House. That's what it used to look like. If you know, if people partied out there, whatever. But we got a cabin, had a Halloween party, whatever. And when we were driving there, we got there kind of late, and off to the right-hand side, I saw something that looked like a dog. It was big, though. It was like really big. It was like, waist high. And I thought that was weird. And then I was like, well, maybe, there's all types of animals out here. You just never know. And so we get to this cabin or house, whatever you want to call it, out by the river, and we're, setting up, getting ready to go for the party. And, someone comes in and says, did y'all see that big dog on the way here? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, yeah, I did see, a very large dog. And someone's like, man, that was it was monstrous. It was like big. It was off to the side of the road, but it crossed in front of us. Like it was coming from the cliff side, like the kind of the high. If you guys have been out in Tahlequah, you know exactly what I'm talking about, where it's kind of like like a slope. And you got to be very strong to go up, have leg strength to go up there and, climb up this kind of sloped, very sharp sloped, but it crossed in front of them and went towards the river. And I was like, dang, that might have been something. I was really thinking in my head, but night went on and, we're all sitting outside, just kind of hanging out. And I go inside and all of a sudden, people that were still outside come running in real fast, like real hard, like scared. And they said, we heard a howl, out here. And I'm like, at the time, Dogman wasn't even in my mind. I was thinking it might have been a shapeshifter or somebody messing with us. A bunch of college age kids out here partying, could have been messing around, but they heard a howl and they come running in. And those things happen. But this next story was really strange to me. And this story came out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And she lived in a house that was in the middle of the city. A very nice house, had a huge backyard. But in this certain area, it had like a lot of dense woods, behind the gate. And she had a gate to go out into those woods from her yard. And there were blackberries back there, but she'd go out there and play in the woods and kind of surrounding areas as a little girl. And one day she started kind of noticing that something was either watching her or following her. And she was young. So she started telling her mom, like, I think something's weird is going on in this house. I think something's watching us. Something's here. And it got to a point where her mother would start staying with her to try to get her to go to sleep at night. And then all of a sudden, whatever this was, Dogman is what she's, the term that's, she used, or werewolves, started looking into her window at night. And she says she doesn't really remember the facial features except for the red eyes and the scratching. She says she sometimes can still remember and hear the scratching that it made on her window. And she would tell her mom, like, there's something coming to my window. It's whispering to me like it's wanting me to go out there. Like it's trying to tell me something. And I'm getting goosebumps telling this, dang. But it's creepy to me because I got two little girls that something like that would be messing with her. And her mother ended up boarding up the windows and, just basically trying to just stay with her. And she started realizing that, like, there is something here in these woods behind the house and that they are coming up to the house. And they ended up moving later on, but that's a creepy story. And that happened in the middle of Oklahoma City. And if you ask me what Dogman is, I don't know. I really, truly don't know. I was always raised up, it might have been shapeshifter, could have been something else, werewolf, I don't know, but those things are out here. People reporting them, people are seeing them. I couldn't even imagine, what that could be. I know very old story that I heard back a long time ago is that this thing used to travel up a road here or not here, but in the Tahlequah area. There used to be one of these things that used to, go up and down the road. And there different people have seen it. If you know that story or have heard something similar to that out in Cherokee country, let me know.
I just have never heard a story about the Dogman that has made me be like, I'd love to meet this guy.
No, not at all.
Never. You hear stories of like Sasquatch taking care of children lost in the woods for a couple days or something like that. You hear these tales. I've never heard anything good about Dogman. But the point is, even if it was Dogman, it could have got me. It didn't. No one's got out there, like in a physical way. People other than me have been even worse traumatized out there on this property. I mean, to the point where someone had to check themselves into a mental hospital for a couple weeks after a visit there, because of what they experienced. Because apparently there's a growl on this property There's a creature that will make a growl out there. It's been heard a few times. It's been heard by Carolyn multiple times. It's been heard by this person. And there's, I've heard creatures being described out there from people who will never return to that property. I've heard them described as, I'm paraphrasing, but you need to move immediately. Something unholy is here. Like, you cannot live here. There is a monster on your property. Like, people have described it like that, and we're talking about like people who are professors or hyper interested and want to research this stuff and have shown up at that property and they're like, get the heck out of here.
Maine is a land of deep woods and long shadows. With over 17 million acres of forest, it is one of the most heavily wooded states in America. Vast stretches of wilderness remain untouched, unmonitored, and largely unexplored. For centuries, people have vanished into these woods, and others have come out with stories they struggle to explain. Among the strangest of these stories is a creature said to walk upright like a man, but with the body, head, and instincts of a wolf. They call it Dogman. Dogman sightings have been reported across North America for decades. Witnesses consistently describe a tall, muscular creature, often between 6 and 8 feet in height, covered in dark fur, with a canine head, pointed ears, long arms, and piercing eyes. Unlike traditional werewolves of folklore, Dogman is not described as a human transforming under a full moon. Instead, it is said to be a creature that exists independently, intelligent, territorial, and frighteningly fast. And in recent years, an increasing number of reports place this creature deep within the forests of Maine. Maine is the perfect environment for something like Dogman to exist unseen. Endless pine forests, sparse population, harsh winters that drive wildlife and anything else into deeper cover. Much of northern and central Maine is more remote than people realize. There are logging roads that stretch for miles without a single structure, areas where cell service disappears, and regions rarely visited except by hunters, trappers, and forestry workers. It is in these forgotten places that the stories begin. One of the most common locations tied to Dogman sightings in Maine is rural Penobscot County. In one account, a local hunter described tracking deer just before dusk when the forest suddenly went silent. No birds, no wind, then movement. He claimed a large, upright figure stepped out from behind a stand of trees approximately 50 yards away. At first, he thought it was a bear standing on its hind legs, until it turned its head. What he saw, he said, was unmistakably canine. The creature reportedly stared at him for several seconds before moving off with long, fluid strides. The hunter left the woods immediately and never returned to that same area. One of the most disturbing Dogman encounters in Maine comes from the small town of Palmyra, located in Somerset County. Palmyra sits at the edge of a dense woodland, farmland giving way quickly to forest, a place where darkness arrives early and help can be miles away. In this account, a local resident described a late-night encounter near their home. As they looked out toward the tree line, they noticed a large figure standing just beyond the edge of the woods. At first, they assumed it was a man, but as their eyes adjusted, the shape became clearer and far more terrifying. The figure stood upright, well over 6 feet tall, covered in dark hair with broad shoulders and arms that hung unusually long. And then there was the head, not human. Witnesses described a canine-like face, elongated, with pointed ears and glowing eyes that reflected the light. The creature appeared to be watching the house, motionless, deliberate, as if assessing the people inside. What made the encounter even more unsettling was the creature's behavior. It did not charge. It did not flee. Instead, it stood there calmly, confidently,
as though it understood it had nothing to fear. After several moments, the creature turned and walked back into the forest, not on all fours, but upright, disappearing silently into the darkness. The witness later described a sense of being watched for days afterward, unwilling to go outside at night and convinced that whatever they saw was not a bear, not a wolf, and not a man. For many researchers, the Palmyra account stands out because it occurred near a residence, not deep in the wilderness, suggesting the creature was comfortable operating at the edges of a human territory. Many Maine witnesses mention the same unsettling detail: the eyes. Amber, yellow, sometimes reflecting red in headlights or flashlight beams. Several individuals describe an overwhelming sense of dread, a fear so intense it feels unnatural, as if triggered by something deep in the human brain. Researchers suggest this may be an instinctive response to an apex predator, something that humans are not meant to encounter face to face. Some of the most terrifying Dogman sightings occur not deep in the woods, but on Maine's back roads. Drivers traveling through areas like Aroostook County, Somerset County, and stretches near Route 2 have reported near collisions with massive, upright creatures crossing the road at night. In several cases, the witnesses claim the creature crossed the road in just 2 or 3 strides, covering distances no human could manage. One driver stated the creature turned its head and made eye contact before disappearing into the tree line. Not on all fours, but upright. Dogman is not always seen. Sometimes it is heard. Deep growls, howls that don't match wolves or coyotes, screams described as a mix between a human voice and an animal roar. Campers and hunters across Maine report hearing these sounds late at night, often accompanied by heavy footsteps circling campsites or structures. In some cases, witnesses report something striking trees or pacing just beyond firelight, never fully revealing itself. Whether Dogman is a flesh and blood creature, a remnant of ancient folklore, or something else entirely remains unknown. But the stories continue, from hunters to truck drivers, from campers to lifelong Mainers, people who have nothing to gain and everything to lose by coming forward. In a state defined by wilderness, silence, and shadow, perhaps it should not surprise us that some things remain hidden. Because in Maine's forests, you are never truly alone.
I recall a few years ago, people were talking about these forest rangers and all these stories coming out of them having creepy experiences in the woods. A lot of these are about outposts where forest rangers themselves were spending nights alone in the woods. Well, let me start by saying this. That's all BS. I've been working as a forest ranger for 20 years. And there's very few situations where you find yourself out in the middle of a national forest overnight unless it's on a search and rescue mission. My encounter with Dogman happened on one such occasion. It was during the search for George Null. Now, for the record, he was located by helicopter and airlifted out. It was all over the news. But what the news didn't talk about were those of us who volunteered and walked into the forest looking for him. I personally spent 36 hours searching for this man before I decided it was too dangerous for me to stay. Dangerous, you may ask. Yes, I mean it was dangerous. Understand, Mount Waterman area is known for being nothing more than a day hike area, a quick getaway for people who live in the area. In and out, same day. So in order for George to go missing for multiple days, it meant something went drastically wrong. So I assumed the worst and started working areas much harder to access off the trail. And for the first time in my career, I found myself in the woods and my body completely and utterly exhausted. No matter how much water I drank, no matter how much protein I got in my body, it was like the life was being sucked out of me. And the further I moved along searching, the worse it got. Every step felt like I was walking in mud. And by the time I needed to make camp, I was completely exhausted. Imagine a scene. I'm there making camp. The weather's a cool 53 degrees, and I get this feeling I'm being watched. Now, if you've ever been in the woods before, you've gotten this feeling. Something's looking at you. It's no big deal. It's a part of being out there alone. So I go ahead and ignore it. But boy, was that a mistake? Was that a mistake? Because just before sundown, the feeling gets worse and I start to see things. Now, the first thing I saw was what we in this industry call the witch in the woods. It looks like a woman with a hat on her head. She's there, but her face is distorted. And I can see her as clear as day peeking from behind a tree. And this is my first time seeing her. She's looking directly at me, scares the out of me. Right after that, I begin to feel more and more exhausted. I mean, I'm so tired I can't keep my eyes open and feeling dizzy. Next thing I know, I'm waking up inside of my tent and don't remember going inside the tent, and it's dark outside. Listen to me. The fire that I don't remember starting is going out, and I just feel weird and disoriented. Imagine you standing there looking around, it's pitch black, and when you turn the flashlight on, you see eye shine, the biggest eye shine that you've ever seen in the woods. It's 14 feet in the air. And if finding yourself in a situation like that is not bad enough, this is what happened next. I start to see this giant black shadow moving, circling around me, blacker than the blackness of the night. And every time I shine the light and get it on that shadow, it's just this pure mass of blackness. It's there for about 3 seconds, then it's gone. And I want to be clear with you, these are two separate things. Those eyeballs are staying right there in place, and this black mass is circling me. Then I black out again, wake up inside the tent again, not knowing how in the hell it happened or how I got there. This time, listen to me, I wake up, it's daybreak. The sun is shining. I'm like, oh, no, I'm done. I don't care what's going on. I'm getting up out of here. I'm leaving these woods no matter what it takes. I'm leaving. So I start to hike back out. And as I walk along, I keep getting this feeling that someone is rushing up behind me, turn around and look, and there's nobody there. When I say to you that that's probably the most frightening experience I ever had in the woods, it really is, because every time I moved about 50, 60 yards, it felt as if somebody was running up behind me. Now, I didn't hear any sounds, didn't see anything when I turned around. Now, imagine you're walking along, you're just getting comfortable, your mind starts drifting off, and then wham! It's like somebody runs up on you like they're going to grab you. Listen to me. I found myself so scared, so frightened, that I walked zigzag. That way I could see out of the corner of my eye. That's when I saw that witch again and got my first glimpse of Dogman. It looked like a giant black wolf standing on two legs, 35 yards away, looking right at me, the biggest yellow eyes I've ever seen. And let me tell you something, it took everything in my power not to run. He was there and that witch was right there, looking over his shoulder, face shimmering. Listen to me, 2.5 hours later, I come out of the woods and the hours don't add up. It just don't make any sense. It was like I traveled faster than I should have coming out, but I didn't feel like I was moving faster. Listen to me when I tell you this. When I finally get home, I'm exhausted, sleep for 20 hours. The following day, it hits the news that they found George and airlifted him out of the woods. Like I said when I started this story, there's a lot of forest rangers out in the woods in some freaking tower. Man, that's not how it works. What I experienced is the real deal. So if you see a witch in the woods, it probably will behoove you to leave because Dogman is there as well.
Right. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is werewolves versus Dogman. Okay. So everybody says like werewolf this, werewolf that. And a lot of those reports I believe are attributed to what the phenomenon is Dogman. And Dogman is, I believe that Dogman is not a flesh and bone creature. I think the difference between a werewolf and a Dogman is that a Dogman is more of like a spiritual entity. When you hear about people getting chased or pursued by what they describe as werewolves, but it never catches up to them, like it never, like it's always chasing them, but it never quite gets them or it scares them really bad. I think Dogman is what's known as a fear eater. Dogman and werewolves would be similar to appearance, where Dogman can be anything ranging from just, it looks like a dog on hind legs to what you would think of as when you think of your typical werewolf type scenario. Arkansas, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Missouri, all those areas are very, very famous for Dogman sightings. There's actually an Oklahoma Dogman sighting that went on a big heavy run, back around 10 to 15 years ago. Werewolves though is what when you're thinking of the wolf man or your classic werewolf, you might think of several different things. So werewolves are often depicted as either a man that just turned straight up into a wolf, kind of like on Twilight, when you see Jacob turn into a wolf. Fun little side fact, those were not werewolves in the Twilight movie. If you read the books, it talks about the other Native American clans could actually transform to different spirit animals. Like there was one Native American group that could turn into grizzly bears. Just Jacob's tribe happened to be the wolf, so they would transfer into wolves. So fun fact, werewolves and vampires were not in Twilight, just vampires were, and then shapeshifters is what Jacob's people were. Weird side note, there's going to be a lot of pop culture references in this. There's the American Werewolf in London type deal, where, a man turns into what looks like a dog type deal. There's versions where these people can turn into werewolves at will. There's versions where they can only turn into them at the full moon. There's your underworld thought when you think about vampires versus werewolves, like the Lycans, the big muscled up, vampires. That's what the modern, vision of a vampire kind of is on hind legs. So there's several different ways that people can look at it, but I like to think of the old classic Wolfman type deal. Now, where do werewolf stories originate from? But a lot of origin stories of werewolves can be found in children's nursery rhymes. So have you ever heard of, the Three Little Pigs, little pig, let me in. And then he blows the stick house down and the straw house down, but he can't get into the stone house or the brick house. Those were true stories that were passed down to tell people, essentially, build your homes good, build your shelters good. Because back then, when we didn't have weapons and wolves were, running wild, doing what wolves do, babies would cry in the middle of the night and wolves could smell them and they could get in through the windows. Because you got to think, now you have a pane glass window, which at the end of the day, a wolf could go through that if it wanted to. But wolves are always going to take the passive least resistance. Our homes also nowadays seal up our smells better than before. So back then, where most of the house was, pretty open air, smells from your home would go outside pretty easy. So wolves would come in through the windows, through the doorways. A lot of houses were made out of sticks or straw, and they could quite literally dig through the walls or the roof, and they'd steal babies. And that's not a myth or a legend. That we know that for a fact. So Three Little Pigs was originally about making your home strong and sturdy. That was your neat little nursery rhyme. Tons of nursery rhymes are rooted into really dark original things. Another nursery rhyme, Little Red Riding Hood, don't walk into the woods alone. That was essentially for kids saying hey, don't go, through the woods alone. But it was also a message for parents of don't send your kids on errands through the woods or around the wooded areas. One of the original werewolf stories was about a village where there was only a few sole survivors that made it to the neighboring towns and villages and were able to get a military troop together. Now, this story is not a isolated one-time story. This happened multiple times, but there was a huge wolf attack that happened in the middle of the day where dozens of villagers were killed in broad daylight by a massive pack of wolves that numbered in the hundreds. Now, many of these villages didn't really even have names like we would think of today, because these villages would be 4, 5, 6 houses. So, we're talking about, small groups of people that lived together, maybe 20 to 30 people max. Well, these wolf packs were, like I said, numbered in the hundreds, and they would just come take what they wanted. We didn't have weapons like we do today to fend them off. We just had swords or pitchforks. And, a lot of people back then think everybody had a sword. Very, very few people had a sword back then. Most swords were, rationed for the military, or you were a noble family. So if you were defending your farm, you were using farm tools. You were using scythes or pitchforks or maybe an axe. You didn't have a sword. Okay. That wasn't a normal thing for people to have. They're very expensive. So like I said, these wolf packs would come and attack. And I think that over time, people thought these legendary wolves in these stories were werewolves. And who knows, they might have been. But back then, wolves got stats like today. How we keep track of NBA players and, NFL players and stuff. I just said NBA, MLB, NFL. We keep track of players. Back then, they kept track of animal stats because there was multiple wolves that had names, and these wolves were credited for dozens of kills. There was a female she-wolf in France that claimed the lives of an estimated 30 some odd people by herself, not her pack. Herself had been seen killing, mutilating, or maiming dozens and dozens of people. And she specifically would go after babies and children. And it didn't seem to matter if it was night or day. And she had a massive pack. And these people would describe the wolf. They would write it down. They would write about it in their like logs. You can look up like serious logs of French and German towns and the wolves that they were at battle with. So much that sometimes their kingdoms or villages or towns would declare literal war on wolf packs. But the Beast of Govindot is a really crazy story. Over the span of 3 years, more than 100 people were killed, with dozens and dozens more permanently injured or maimed from these wolf attacks. If you want my honest opinion, though, on the craziest wolf story that you can ever see, it's the wolves of Paris. It happened 300 years before the story of the Beast of Govindot. The wolves of Paris were led, like this sounds like something out of a movie or like an anime or something. The wolves of Paris were led by a bob-tailed wolf, and it had its own name. The bobtailed wolf name was Chortad, and Chortad led a massive pack of wolves. This is Paris, by the way. I mean, a huge place. They set up tons of defenses to keep this massive pack of wolves out that they quite literally declared war on. Over the course of days, the wolves somehow breached the defenses. Yes, breached the defenses, meaning took out guards, climbed over stone fortifications walls, and made it into the town. The people then lured it. Like they used meat and other sources to lure this massive pack to Notre Dame, where a militia had formed to hide in the buildings around Notre Dame. And when the packs of wolves went into the cathedral, they barricaded them in there and stoned and speared them to death. This is a true story you can look up and read. It's called The Wolves of Paris. It is a documented war with wolves in one of the most famous buildings in the world, the Notre Dame Cathedral. It just sounds something out of a fairy book. And that's why I think that over time, animals have changed on our planet. Because I think that animals are way more sentient than we realize. And I think over time, they recognize weapons. They recognize danger. And they mentally evolve to avoid people. Because you're talking about this was a highly populated area. And they're just like, we're going in there. You know, the only difference between back then and now is one, there's nowhere near as many wolves. But the wolves that are still there, also, I think they know like people are danger. People equals like death. We don't go there. It's just amazing to me how much crazy history is out there. And I wish so much they'd have taught us stuff like that in schools, because like that is how we forever changed our earth. And people don't realize like over time, animals and nature were a much bigger deal than today. So containment theory is pretty much the belief that like I'm going to talk about this on the U.S. level, but it exists on all levels too. The U.S. government has designated national parks, right? Where you can't build cities and towns, and some of these areas are no light zones, and some of these areas are like quiet zones and stuff. And there's a belief out there called containment theory that the reason why we designated certain areas as national parks is because we know this other intelligent race of either werewolf or vampire, possibly both, exist, and we're giving them a place to hunt and feed. And that's kind of our agreement of like, hey, we'll let some travelers through these areas. Every once in a while you can take a couple. Just don't make a habit out of it. This ties into the missing 411 phenomenon, but we'll get into that in a minute. And you know, the reason why I say like everybody's always like, oh, national parks are because there's beautiful things there. Our whole country was a national park at one time. So why did we designate certain areas as national park zones? If you look at national park zones, almost all of them are on giant cave systems, which is super weird. There is almost no giant cave system in America that is not labeled a national park zone. Pretty much every massive cave system is underneath a national park zone, which has led a lot of people to believe is that where they're living or retreating to or hiding in. And there is some caves in the United States that you're not allowed to go unless you have certain licensing or whatever. And then some caves you're not allowed to go, period. So maybe at some point there was a treaty between intelligent beings and intelligent races of like, hey, if you don't want us hunting the cities and everywhere else, we get to hunt these certain areas. And these are technically our designated hunting zones. Because there's no light zones in certain national parks where even rescue crews, like if you go missing in a no light zone, even a rescue crew has to get permission to go in there with lights to look for you. So like, what are they so worried about? If it's a life and death situation, what are they worried about saving you? And some people go, oh, it's for the bats. Some of these no light zones have nothing to do with bats. I've looked into it. Some of it says, oh, so you can see the stars. Like, oh, so somebody can see the stars is more important than a rescue crew has to go save, you know, Jimmy John over here that fell off a cliff or something. Like, what are you worried you're going to stir up or see or attract. Getting into the containment theory side of things, people talk about there's portals in the national parks. Maybe that's how they come and go from our dimension to wherever they're from, or that's a way they can kind of fast travel. Who knows? But the missing 411 phenomenon, if you don't even know what I'm talking about, is the strange, mysterious disappearances in the national parks. A lot of these are normal that go missing in the national parks. That's not a missing 411 case. Missing 411 cases revolve around people that go missing, when they're mostly with a group of people and there's no explanation for them to be gone. Like they just didn't look at, Joe over there for 10 seconds and Joe's gone forever. Sometimes these people are found later, but they don't remember being gone, or it seems like they were gone for a very short amount of time when they were actually gone for days. Sometimes they're not found, but their stuff is found in a previous area that had been searched heavily, or where they even originally went missing from in the first place. There's so many, a lot of these revolve kids, which goes back to the wolves we were talking about. They would normally attack wolves and children. But a lot of these missing 411 cases, the dogs that come out to help find them can't even find scent trails, or the scent trails stop abruptly nowhere near water, or their footprints stop abruptly and it's like they were just picked up into the sky. And we talked a little bit about that in our Bigfoot theory stuff the other day. I'm thinking that all of this stuff can be designated for the national park system to be their safe haven areas. That would also explain why there's not hunting allowed in these national parks and everything, without special permits and licensing, because maybe at the end of the day, they don't want you accidentally shooting one of these werewolves, one of these Bigfoot, whatever.
Hello, my name is Ben Arkakita. I'm enrolled Ponca tribal member. I'm also part Oto, Missouri. And I want to share a story, experience that I had back in 2004. So let's go back to 2004. It's November night, late November. The community up in Whitey, where I live, we played basketball all evening. And wintertime is not much else to do playing basketball. So we were all playing there and at the gymnasium, which is probably a quarter of a mile from the Kay and Noble County line. And that's where our gym is at. And everybody left, and I said, I'll lock up. So I went around and locked the doors, and I went out the east side of the west side of the building on the south side, and I came around to the north side. It was about 10 o'clock at night. I believe it was a Tuesday night. And I started walking on a nice, clear, cloudless night, bright moon, pretty cold. And I'm just walking back home, since I live locally right there in the community. And I get probably on the road, blacktop road leading back to the community, and I get right in front of our senior citizens building, and I hear this, the only way I've described it to different ones over the years is it sounded like a wolf, a werewolf, if you will, not from a mile or two away, but really, really close. So much of it is, it's not just something I hear, it's loud. It sounds like it's really, really close. I don't know what it is. It shocked me so much when I turned around. I started looking for the direction that the sound was coming from. And it was from the southwest of the community, down by our old sewer lagoons, along a timber line down there, right on the Noble County, Kay County line, county road. And it was so shocking, and it kind of gave me chills a little bit. And I turned around and I said, I don't know what that was, talking to myself. And there's some night lights here and there around the wellness center, around the social development center. Behind the senior citizen center is the food distribution program, and there's a night light there. So I'm looking at all these night lights and trying to figure out, is there something back there that's going to come through there. And I'm looking back north toward the clinic and toward the police station that's real close. And I'm like, this is pretty chilling for me to be going through this. And I'm walking backwards, still looking. And I get probably about half a block north in front of the clinic, and it did it again. The same kind of howling. And when I tell different ones about this through the years, I tell them it sounds like in the movies when those two boys are walking through the moors in the American Werewolf in London. That same deep-throated, guttural sound from that howl. And it was a second one that was just as loud as the first one. And I couldn't wait to get back into the community. And when I finally did, I just kept looking south, thinking something's going to be coming through the pasture, through the fields, under those lights or something. Your mind just kind of races when you're going through something like that. And I would tell different ones throughout the years about that experience. And I didn't have a problem telling them that because it happened to me. If it happened to somebody else or another family member, and, I wouldn't be so readily to say, okay, that's what he heard or whatever, but this is what I heard. And I don't mind telling you that that's what I heard back then. And, I can remember right now hearing the sound of that, whatever that was. And to me, it'll always sound like some type of a wolf, a big wolf, that sounded like it straight out of the movies. That's how scary that was at that point in time.
There are 5 commonalities that I see the most in Dogman eyewitness encounters. And anytime I research a paranormal topic, I like to look for commonalities and sightings because, in my opinion, although it's not the end-all be-all of deciding the legitimacy of a phenomena, it definitely makes it more believable and 100% more intriguing when you have so many different eyewitnesses reporting the exact same thing. So let's get into it. Number 1, the German Shepherd resemblance. So many eyewitnesses report Dogman having a head and general features similar to the German Shepherd. So many encounters use this dog breed as the best descriptor of what a Dogman looks like. And I'm assuming they refer to the overall silhouette of the creature rather than any real distinct features, especially when it comes to the tall ears and the pronounced snout, but it's still intriguing nonetheless. Number 2 is the church and graveyard connection. Now, there are many encounters that take place either in a graveyard or outside or around a religious edifice. And this is something I've noticed in a lot of encounters. They seem to be really attracted to churches and graveyards. Like there's this definite attraction to death and Judeo-Christian religious symbols. I don't really want to get in super deep to religious or cosmic explanations for this, just for the purposes of this video, because that could honestly be its own topic and video, but it goes without saying you can't really ignore the connection there. Number 3, malicious behavior. This is probably the most common feature of many sightings, one that you'll become all too familiar with if you read and listen to as many encounters as I have. But so many eyewitnesses have reported that they didn't feel that this thing was simply a curious animal. Many report that it seems to almost derive pleasure in people's terror and that it actively goes out of its way to continue to cause anguish and terror in the unfortunate people who witness it. There's a pretty common trope among these sightings that when you see one, you're more likely to have another encounter. And that kind of definitely goes into the whole stalking behavior and the malicious behavior and deriving pleasure from the terror of its victims. Number 4 is the eyes. So many witnesses who see Dogman describe the eyes as the most striking feature of the creature, not only in the often vibrant color schemes that they're reported as coming in, such as having a really deep amber, striking blue, even yellow or green, but there seems to be a freaky amount of intelligence behind the eyes, with so many witnesses describing this feeling of the Dogman staring directly into their soul. And less common but still worthy of mentioning is that some witnesses describe the eyes as glowing and not like a normal eye shine, like when you drive by a deer and you see its eyes glow in your headlights. But there seems to be a legitimate bioluminescence behind a lot of these. Like they see the eyes from a distance in the woods without any light on them, and there's really no explanation other than there seem to be them producing their own source of light behind the eyes. Really fascinating. Finally, at number 5, we have the pop. Now, this is my absolute favorite because to me, this lends such credence to the legitimacy of so many eyewitness encounters because it's so random and specific, no one could just make this up to try to sell an encounter. Many witnesses report seeing these creatures on all fours, and maybe at first they think it's just a large or an oddly proportioned wolf. But then this weird phenomena happens when there is a loud popping sound that they make whenever they transition from all fours to standing on 2 legs. The best explanation for this that I have heard is that this is their joints and vertebrae switching position to accommodate their upright posture, thus making that famous popping sound. And the weirdest part about this is that it actually makes kind of anatomical sense, which just makes it all the more freaky. Again, just how specific and random of a detail that is. I just don't think someone who's seeking attention and is hoaxing is just going to take the time or even have the intelligence to make that up.
Thank you for watching. If these Dogman encounters sent a chill down your spine, make sure to subscribe and drop your thoughts in the comments below. As always, stay safe, stay aware, question everything, and remember, out there in those woods, something might be watching.